Hello, everyone. I had not initially planned to go live tonight, but a few things happened and it made me think about some things that are going on. And I decided that I would go ahead and drop some of my thoughts. I am going to wait on some of you guys to get in here. Miss Lady, thank you for stopping by. This is a late night live. It will be up afterwards. I don't expect to have a lot of people watching, so I appreciate everyone who shows up. And Miss Lady, I'm glad you're here. Ariel, thank you for showing up. Thank you for talking to me today, Ariel, about things in your country. Very fascinating. Pemberton Boys. I think you're gonna like this live. If you can't catch it all tonight, catch the rest of it tomorrow. By the way, Pemberton Boys, go check out their channel. They are killing it. When someone like Dylan Young says this channel's legit, you know it's legit. That's what he said about the Pemberton Boys. Two Metal for you. Thank you for checking in. Brad Clark, good to have you here. I get that, Ariel. I get that. Kind of we're in the same boat over here. We've got a few things, but, but we do live in a different society over here, and so we're working with that. Guys, please do me a favor, smash that like button. Area 51, good to see you in here. Glad you're on board. Not a lot, Area. I got into an odd conversation last night, and then some things happened over the last 2 days. It kind of made me want to do this live. Hey, Pemberton Boys, no, thank you for the kind words you've thrown at me. You guys are knocking it out of the park. Seriously, I want to hit you up for some footage soon, dude. I've got some ideas. I've also got an idea of trade and swap and stuff, some things like that. Thank you guys for smashing the like button. I'm going to get into a bit of a story. I'm going to try not to have it be drawn out because I don't want to give you guys a bunch of unnecessary stuff and have you guys watching half the night. I know it's late and a lot of people have to work tomorrow, but I'm on one of those pages on Facebook that's like, you're from Tulsa if, type thing where they do all the looking back at things that are no longer there. And most cities have one, you're from Dallas if, or, you're from Oklahoma City if, and they're fun places, especially if you've grown up somewhere in local. And I got to talk to some people last night via Facebook that I have not talked to in 28 to 31 years. It was that long ago. I grew up in a zoo. I'm not going to lie. Some of my best childhood memories were, shoveling elephant poop at the zoo in Tulsa, Oklahoma, or, helping to, feed chimpanzees, things like this. I got to do that on a volunteer basis when I was a teenager from like 1984 to 1988. And it was just absolutely the best time of my life. I dealt with a lot of alienation in my school, had very few friends. I wasn't a football player, and if you weren't a football player, you might as well have just forgotten about it in the high school I went to. So anyway, I found this alternate universe at this place that today is still very much like a church, and it's the Tulsa Zoo. The keepers became my role models, people I looked up to. The other kids that worked there were the ones that I cared about accepting me. Um, hey, everyone. Hey, Lou. Glad to have you jumping in. And anyway, hey, Logic. Great to see you. Um, but I wanted to talk about some of the stuff I learned at the zoo because we were going back over this stuff. Me and three friends who were teenagers volunteering at this local zoo. We went back through a lot of old memories last night and things. TNT, thank you for stopping in. I need to get by your channel. Um, and normally now is when I would cut away and see if I could get Lou to join. And I'm not going to do that tonight because while Lou is an absolute inspiration to me, and I will go live with that guy anytime. I kind of feel like I've got my own message. I'm on fire tonight, and I want to get it out there. But anyway, we were discussing all these different aspects to being a teenage volunteer at the Tulsa Zoo in the 80s. Gotcha, Lou. Hey, man, you know you're welcome on my channel anytime. But anyway, we were discussing about how politics, insurance, regulations, tighter restrictions from the AZA, how all that stuff has crept in over the last 30 years and made it to where the zoo teens of today get to do very little. They almost never get to do anything with the animals. They're not even allowed to clean cages anymore. I mean, used to, they would, put all the birds into a shift box and you'd go in there and scoop out the fecal matter and you would pull out their food trays, dump them, replace them with fresh ones, and stuff like that. And I got to learn at an early age zoo protocol for dealing with these kind of things. Drunk guy explains, man, long time no see, bud. I'm glad you're here. I'm glad you could catch a live. But anyway, what happened is, even though back in the 80s, things were not as strict as they are today, it was still a very regulated environment. Safety was first, security was first. Those two primary things were above and beyond everything else. And I probably 2 to 3 days a week in my summers, I spent at the Tulsa Zoo. I cleaned the chimpanzee moat. I shoveled a lot of Cape buffalo and elephant dung. You had to work there 2 years before they'd let you get into reptiles. They had to see that you could really follow the rules and, not screw up before they would even let you go near the reptile area or the large mammal area, because there's just a lot of safety protocols in dealing with reptiles, especially venomous ones or large dangerous ones or large mammals. And what you were able to do was, like, once you got into reptiles after you'd done 2 years in birds or children's zoo or small mammals, that, you would start out in reptiles and you would be cleaning the mouse colony. This is back before they pre-ordered frozen rodents and thawed them out. Zoos raised their own rodents and you euthanize them on the spot, usually with a hammer, a brick. Large rats, I remember the old reptile curator just throwing them head first into the cement on newspaper, and then you'd toss them in a python cage. So, I mean, things have definitely changed. There's more oversight protocol, more politics. Hey, Amind, thank you for showing up. I'm thinking of you, Amind. And here recently, I thought about the amount of stuff that goes on in zoos where, things like venomous reptiles are displayed, and how like each enclosure has like two locks on it. You know, one deadbolt, two deadbolt. Probably not every zoo is like that. Most of your AZA ones were like that and had that kind of security protocol for venomous creatures, as well as keeping antivenom for each species in stock and on hand. And they would never administer antivenom at the zoo in case of a bite. They would take you to the hospital, and but it was the zoo's responsibility to keep it. Hey Solo, yes, I did grow up in a zoo, and I'm proud to say I grew up in a zoo. Is the absolute best years of my life, hands down. But anyway, so I reconnected with some old volunteers last night on Facebook in a community page, and we just got started talking about everything. And do you remember when this happened? And do you remember when that happened? And stuff like that. And it was really kind of a different mindset being at an actual like AZA institution where you know, the keepers would watch you if you did something, and you mess up once, and it wasn't like you were out of there, but like you would be shipped back to the children's zoo, where you could, you know, mind the goats and stuff. If you screwed up, it was impeccable that you did everything security first and safety first. Cold-blooded. Glad to have you. And so today, where I decided to go live tonight is my inbox started getting pelted this morning with stories about a venomous cobra that has escaped an owner in Grand Prairie, Texas. There is I think it's a forest cobra or some subspecies that is on the loose in Venomous, Texas. The owner did the right thing. He reported it. And that was the responsible thing to do in that situation. Hey, cold-blooded. But, you know, Grand Prairie, Texas this week. Last month, it was the kid in North Carolina who had a cobra that got away. I want everybody to think about this. If you, as a homeowner, have a dog, and I'm not picking on any specific breed, please don't think I am, but if your dog gets out of your yard, charges into your neighbor's yard, and bites your neighbor, what happens? You are 100% responsible for everything. Their medical bills, their medical care. Their insurance company is going to go after your homeowner's insurance company. Your homeowner's insurance company is going to drop you. I mean, especially if it's what they call a vicious breed. I don't think all vicious breeds are actually vicious. I think it depends on the dog, how it was raised. But we all know the stereotypes that are out there. But basically, we need to think about the same thing if we're keeping something like an exotic species. Like, let's say you're keeping a monkey. Let's say you're keeping a king cobra. Let's say you're keeping a black mamba. You have to think about this. It's very cheap to get into the animal side of things and acquire these animals. But, you know, having your own antivenom is hugely expensive, especially when you get into exotic stuff. I'm not trying to discourage anyone from keeping venomous snakes if that's what they want to do. What I'm saying is think about all these things in consideration of that. And once again, I welcome any questions or comments after the fact that want to challenge my assertions. I'm kind of ready for them. Yeah, you know, I personally, I personally encourage people to get involved in captive herpetoculture, which is the care of reptiles and amphibians, if they want to, and if they're working with something that is their speed. Ball pythons, corn snakes, you know, bull snakes, things like that. Boa constrictors, uh, tortoises, captive bred turtles, lizards. Monitors are amazing to work with. If I had the time, I would probably work with monitors. I have in the past. What I would never recommend is someone who doesn't know what they're doing go out and get a black mamba, go out and get a rhino viper, or go out and get a gaboon viper. That's some serious stuff to get involved with. And when I see people get these as their first animals, I'm like absolutely mortified, because it's like, start with a rattlesnake, start with a copperhead, start with something that, one, your hospital is going to have the antivenom for because it's a local species, and two, you're not likely to die from it anyway. It can happen, but it's also rare. I don't have the facts and figures in front of me, but I can almost assure you that something like a black mamba will kill you a lot faster than a copperhead. I mean, once again, I don't have the LD50 tables in front of me. That's a ranking of venomous snakes and their venom potency. But I do know that, like, copperheads, pygmy rattlesnakes, they're way down on the chain from things like, you know, puff adders, you know, black mambas, green mambas, forest cobras, you know, things like that. Good point, Hitcher. Yeah, catch it and put it back before you die. But think about this. We have two, potentially three incidents in the United States just in the last month where cobras have been escaped pets. Okay, if that cobra, exactly, Hitcher, a brown snake can kill in 15 minutes, proven. Exactly my point. Some of the cobras, some of the puff adders can have that kind of venom potency. Yeah, Ariel, you live in Australia. You guys have the most venomous snakes in the world. And that's the stuff I'm talking about. You know, if you want to keep exotic venomous snakes, I'm old. That's why I keep Elas now. Thanks, Brad Clark. I know the feeling. I know the feeling. I would work with stuff 20 years ago I would never work with today, and I prefer to work with just wild stuff that I can find, because I don't like to clean cages. I do have a few captives. I have some spotted turtles and things like that. I've got a Mexican black king snake. You know, things that are fairly easy. But yeah, you get older, your reflexes aren't as good, and you're smart to know your own limitations. But what I really want people to think about is, you know, are you ready for all the responsibilities, and have you thought out all the responsibilities that go with obtaining and keeping a highly venomous animal? Like, I'm hearing that monocle cobras go at reptile shows in Pennsylvania for $200-300. I know people who have bought them there for that low. Okay, that's cheap to acquire an animal. If that animal escapes and bites your neighbor, and they require, you know, $250,000 medical care, and they don't have insurance, or you don't have insurance, it's really a bad, bad situation. And the one thing that literally was probably over drilled into us when we were teenage volunteers at the zoo was safety and security. Number one rule, nothing escapes. Number two rule, nothing hurts you. When we would approach the tigers to, lock them in for the night. Now, I was allowed to be present for that. I wasn't allowed to do it. The senior keeper or the curator had to do it. But like they had these lines marked off behind the tiger grottos where it's like you could safely stand here if these doors are locked. And then they open this other door, the tiger comes in for the night, lays down, and you kind of put him off exhibit. Same thing with snow leopards, same thing with chimpanzees. And basically, if you had to slide a dish of food in there or something, they would have something built into the cage to where you could do that with like a handle, with a pair of tongs, to where you could stay in that safe zone. So basically, like there was a set of bars. No, I'm not talking about the cage of the display where you see the animal. I'm talking about where the animal spends the night. But you go back in those grottos and you would have a set of bars, another set of bars, then the set of bars that separate the tiger from these other two sets of bars. And once again, it was a very, very serious matter if there was ever any safety protocol broken inside a zoo. I remember one time, one of the volunteers, I think he left the latch open on the bobcat's outdoor run, and the bobcat, is like not going to get loose and kill people, of course, but there was a very, very big deal made about it at the time. This was like 1986, and I'd forgotten about it until last night. Got to talking to these guys. But a friend of mine did a video today called Good Night of Mind. Thank you for stopping by. I'm thinking of you. Message me soon. I sent you a message checking on you. So on Discord, hit me back when you get a chance. But basically, they thought about dismantling the entire program because someone had left the latch open. There's like a double latch system on the outdoor bobcat run. The same thing. You would have to leave two locks open to access that enclosure, to get anything out of that enclosure. And you just got to locking everything twice. When I kept Burmese pythons when I was younger, twice a day, before work, after work, and usually before bed, I would like go through rattle cage doors, make sure everything was 100% safe and secure. There is no room for error keeping any kind of animal that can be potentially dangerous, especially in a private setting. Now, once again, I know that my message is going to fall on deaf ears for a lot of people. I know there's a lot of people out there spending $400 or $500 on a Gaboon Viper, and they've never even handled, or I shouldn't say handled, I should say worked with something like a copperhead or a cottonmouth, something that's far less toxic. And, and people are getting these things as their first animals, and it's, it's just really, really ridiculous and sad. I put some of the culpability on the breeders who sell these things to people. If you're not vetting your customers, to me, you're doing the whole hobby of herpetoculture a very, very huge disservice. Thank you, drunk guy. Means a lot. People sometimes in Facebook groups or on Twitter, things like that. Hey, Benji. I feel like they kind of like shove me aside because, like, who are you? You're not real visible. You're not the in crowd of the reptile community, and that's kind of fine. But, I'm someone who was doing this 40 years ago. I mean, I've got, years of experience behind me in working with, containing, relocating, doing all kinds of things with dangerous animals. Now, can I make mistakes? Yeah. Could I get myself killed? Yeah. But at the same time, you learn how to do things safely and correctly in a situation like an accredited zoo. There is no free handling of venomous snakes in an accredited zoo. If there is, someone's getting fired probably. Um, there's pretty much a hands-off policy for anything venomous unless you have to do a veterinary type procedure on that. Very, very rarely will something get to that level. I might have seen that maybe twice, like my whole 4 years that I volunteered there, because it's very dangerous for you to interact with that animal. Same thing about a chimpanzee, even. People think chimpanzees are cool. They are amazing animals. They're one of my favorite ape species. But an adult male chimpanzee is probably 4 to 6 times as strong as any college linebacker. I bet you we've got a football fan or two watching tonight. I totally encourage you to call your local zoo, ask to speak to the primate curator, and ask about the strength of a full grown chimpanzee. These are animals that, you know, rely on a lot of muscle control and things like that. And they, if they let go of a tree limb, they fall out of a tree, potentially break their neck. Um, so, what do you think they can do to you if they get a hold of you? Once again, you start to understand why there's this set of bars, there's this set of bars, and then there's this set of bars. And there's tape outlines on the ground to make sure you don't step inside of a safety zone. Um, and some people might say that's a little overkill. And I think, on one hand, yes, it is. But on another hand, this is how we're training people. This is what we're doing. Um, this is the safe zone. The chimpanzee cannot reach you from 6 feet away. The tiger cannot get a paw on you from 8 feet away. And if the reptile room, because I want to twist this towards reptiles, because I'm talking about working with venomous reptiles specifically. The enclosures that they have in an accredited zoo, I'm not talking about roadside zoos or things like that. They generally have like a 3-layer level of security to where if the snake gets out of its cage, which should never happen, and it'll cause a big investigation if it does. But should the snake get out of its cage, it won't get out of the back room. If it gets out of the back room, it won't get out of the building. Now, there have been times this kind of thing has happened. I think back in the 80s, a king cobra got loose at the Bronx Zoo, made it through like a structural defect or something. The zoo curator was running all over the grounds with a 410 shotgun, ready to blow the animal to smithereens, versus letting it escape. And that story was chronicled in an old Reader's Digest from the early 90s, I believe. I think the article was entitled, Why I Left the Zoo. But literally, I have exactly. Charla Nash is a great example of someone who was attacked by their friend's pet, full grown chimpanzee. Her face was ripped off. When she went through all the plastic surgery and reconstruction and appeared on Oprah, She was almost not even recognizable, looked nothing like she did before the attack. Wild animals are wild. They can be wild at any time. Um, and that's one thing to remember. So, like, steering it back towards keeping venomous snakes, I'm never going to encourage anyone to get involved in that without some, like, severe training, some severe mentorship. There's ways to get it. It's not easy to come by. Let me say that right off the bat. You just can't find some guy in your neighborhood who can teach you how to put a mamba in a shift box. Now, there are organizations like, I think the Rattlesnake Conservancy has a venomous snake, I want to say handling class, but they do have a workshop where you can go and you can learn how to use hooks, get it into a secure bucket, or get it into a bag, how to safely do all this stuff. And once again, it's a series of procedures and steps that you have to go through. And if you follow these 100% of the time, nothing's going to happen. Um, you know, but at the same time, see you later, Area 51. Thank you for stopping by. At the same time, what happens to the zoo if a tiger gets out, if a king cobra gets out? The zoo carries a certain amount of liability insurance should that happen. They have to have that kind of insurance on hand for the USDA and to give them the permits that they need to operate. And so, and they do have inspectors, and the AZA has its own team of inspectors that come in and look at this institution. It's kind of like people inside a corporation that go around and make sure everybody's doing their job safely. This is not new. This is not uncommon. What we are seeing though with these escaped, it was an Egyptian in the Bronx Zoo. Okay, Eric B. I'm talking about the one in the 80s. Maybe you are right. I thought it was a king. It could, but maybe I'm wrong. But it was. I do think it was loose for over a week, and once again, it's been 30 years since I read that article, so please forgive me. What we do know is a cobra did escape in the 2011. Yeah, I'm talking about like 1988 or 89, and I was pretty sure it was a king, but I could be wrong. But either way, the zoo has to carry a certain amount of liability insurance for just in case that happens, even though they've got a plethora of rules to make sure it doesn't happen. They have more safety procedures put in than any, I won't say any private facility, but most private facilities or most private owners would ever have. And what you have to think about, getting back to the whole dog scenario, is let's say I have a Rottweiler, a German Shepherd, or even let's say something like an Irish Setter. If it gets out of my yard and bites the kid down the street, I'm in trouble. My dog is getting confiscated, possibly euthanized, which kind of sucks because the dog may have just been being a dog. And it's the responsibility of the owner to make sure that your pets are secure. And once again, like I said, I've heard of people who have, Doberman Pinschers, which I think are a fine breed of dog and generally not aggressive, unless you go in their backyard. Then that can be problematic. But, I've heard of people whose homeowners insurance has gotten dropped simply because they've owned one. And nothing happened. They just simply owned one. And, the insurance company says, yeah, we're not taking this risk. What I'm seeing with venomous snake keepers I mean, it's a disturbing trifecta of a lot of things. One, it's people getting things like gaboon fibers that have never even worked with copperheads, cottonmouths, things like that. It's the fact that everybody, doesn't. I don't see where anyone's calling out the breeders or the sellers. I want to know who these people are. Literally, I would like to go after some of them. Um, because once again, to me, I've worked reptile shows in Texas with friends who were vendors, and they sold venomous animals. And these were people with morals and scruples, and they would ask 10, 15 questions to, kind of fill the person out and make sure they were selling to the right individual. They would ask questions about, what species have you worked with before? How long have you been into it? Yeah, Iron Dog, we're kind of touching on that. We're touching about the Grand Prairie Cobra. Um, but these reptile shows in Texas back in the 2000s, where I would go and hang with some of my friends who were selling venomous creatures. There were all these safety protocols for the shows. You couldn't open it; it had to be taped off with red tape. This one show went so far as to we carry it to your car for you. Um, you know, they would ask about, caging, things like that. All these different scenarios would go on before, they would okay a sell. And the thought of just, people selling gaboon vipers or mambas or cobras to people who, have no experience with them and don't even ask just to make a sell is horribly detrimental towards private herpetoculture. I think it's going to be the end of it personally. Um, Two metal for you. I do not know if they found the Cape Coral cobra that was in the West Virginia, Pittsburgh area. I don't know that they ever established that it was indeed a released animal. I've not heard the verifications. I'm kind of what I was kind of getting at was that there was a North Carolina incident like a month ago, and this week there was the Texas Grand Prairie incident. What's up, Iron Dog? But we as a community, whether we're keeping or not, or whether we're enthusiasts or not, we have to be mindful of the fact that um, that if you're going to keep an animal, you're responsible for its safety, its security, and keeping people around you safe as well. Iron Dog, I don't disagree. Venomproof cages from Joe Challoner are some of the best on the market. I have seen ones I think are better, but they're also like way more expensive. They're built by private individuals. They're not for resale. Um, well, I shouldn't say not for resale. You can get the guys to make them for you, but they're kind of like Joe Challoner's, what he's got kind of carried to an extreme. But I do agree, something like a Joe Challoner venom-proof box, go look at those. If you're watching this and you keep venomous reptiles, I would say go look at Joe Challoner's cages because I think that's the way to go for a lot of this stuff. However, this one in Grand Prairie, from the article I just read before I came on, it seems to be a keeper error where he left the door open for 2 seconds. Next thing you know, the cobra's gone. At least what I read. I do not know the guy. I do not know who he is. But at the same time, one piece of the safety protocol gets ignored, and it starts this trickle down chain effect. And next thing you know, a city where there's muggings, murders, drive-by shootings. Everybody's up in arms about a snake that no one's ever even likely to see. I mean, you got to think about that. If a cobra gets loose, years ago, a cobra got loose in Austin, Texas, and I believe, I want to say it was 2013, 2014. If memory serves me right, the kid tried to, or the kid who owned it committed suicide with it, then let it go. He was in a Lowe's parking lot. The cobra was found flat as a pancake on I-35. And that's generally what's going to happen with most any animal that gets loose in an urban environment. They're going to meet a car or something, and there's not going to be a lot of hope that they're going to be recovered safe and sound. But once again, Iron Dog dropped a guy's name, and I would totally plug his cages if you're into keeping venomous creatures. Um, you definitely want something that's very, very, very secure. Security and safety, the two most important things involved in the husbandry of venomous animals. A lot of almost all zoologists, professional zookeepers, people involved in institutional keeping will back me on this. You can say you disagree with me, that's fine. I mean, I hope I don't lose any followers over this, but if I do, oh well. I'm getting my opinion on things out there, and, um, you know, safety, security, those are the two most important things. Um, it's nice when everything else falls into place, but if you can't keep an animal under lock and key, you really have no business owning it. It's just my opinion. Um, I do know that certain states right now, because of these recent escapes, are looking at legislation against private ownership of venomous reptiles, and or potentially a stricter permitting system for doing so. And I talked to game officials from a few different states, and I do talk to some people from the North Carolina area. And believe me, it is coming for North Carolina. Um, I wouldn't doubt it comes for South Carolina. Could be wrong, but um, basically, you know, these incidents happen, and then unfortunately, everybody gets punished for it. One bad apple spoils the bunch. It's always been that way. Exactly, Eric B. Some people keep venomous in poorly made rack enclosures. Once again, poorly made. There are some good ones out there that do have locks, that do have security features, and I have no problem with those. Um, Zero problem with using a really secure rack system. A friend of mine recently picked one up, and it is tight. Um, and it has a lock for each tub. It's really slick. I kind of wouldn't mind getting one of those myself if I was keeping king snakes or something like that, because it does appear to be absolutely escape proof. Hey, Desert Wolf, good to good to have you. Good to have you on board tonight. I was making some references to your video earlier, and that I agreed with it. Um, but if these animals keep escaping, um, the hot shows are simply going to go away. Private ownership is going to get to where you're going to need $2,000 worth of permits to obtain a $400 animal. I don't want to see it get there. Some states it's too late. Some states it's already going to happen. I've talked to the people who are drafting the legislation. I see it coming. Um, Once again, and Texas has always been a bastion of freedom for venomous keepers. They have quite a few Sorry, I lost you guys for a second. Can you hear me? Someone let me know that you can hear me. Thanks, Sherry. But Texas has been a bastion of, venomous reptile shows. They used to have three or four that I know of. Now I know they have two. There may be another one or two creeping around. Um, like Oklahoma, you can legally own venomous snakes in Oklahoma, with certain permits, but at the same time they don't allow venomous shows. Um, Reporters have went undercover at venomous shows and asked around to buy, things like rattlesnakes. And one person um, who was in the reptile community a while back made a deal with an undercover television reporter to sell them a rattlesnake. It was funny and sad at the same time because this individual was unscrupulous. He didn't care. He just wanted to make a buck. Um, and he sold to someone who nobody knew. And the undercover cameras got it, and it was all over the Oklahoma City Evening News. Um, we have to have people like that out of what we do as private herpetoculturalists. If they're if it's going to continue, Eric B, I totally agree with you. Um, I don't I think in most areas and cases there do need to be stricter permits for things like exotic venomous. There are a lot of people who go from ball python to gaboon viper. I think that's a horrible, horrible, horrible mistake. Going from, you know, a ball python to a copperhead, I don't see the problem if they know what they're doing and they haven't had any escapes. That's the first thing to look at. Is, if you've kept king snakes or corn snakes, um, and you've had no escapes, well, maybe then you look at moving to something like that. Ball pythons are just like gaboons, desert wolf. The thing of it is, the parallel that I'm drawing is the gaboon viper can inject you with venom that can kill you quickly. The ball python cannot. And and once again, I don't want to go on about it forever. I'm seeing this trend of people doing stupid free handling crap on Instagram, YouTube. Some of these people like actually kind of know what they're doing. They've had some practice and they do it without getting hurt. Um, but the vast majority of it doesn't need to be out there. Free handling is, in my opinion, stupid. I'm not going to hold it against you if you do it, but I'm also not going to associate with you because you're viewed by professionals as a non-professional. Now, I'm not saying I'm a professional. I'm saying that I worked with and came up under professionals. People degrees in zoology who are zoo curators, people like that. Um, it's a hands-off kind of deal. I got you, Desert Wolf. I see you up there. Thanks, Homestead. But, ultimately, if you bring an animal into your house or you keep it, you're responsible for it, and you're responsible for what it does should it escape. And and I've seen people who are solid, permitted, venomous keepers who are doing it legally the right way. They get like all these like different insurance policies and things for like, should a tornado hit their building or something and they have a cobra that gets out. Once again, very rare scenario, not likely to happen. You're a million times more likely to get struck by lightning, but they have that anyway. It's kind of overkill. And you see, that's what I see the AZA zoos and your accredited zoos as doing. They have safety protocols in place for a certain reason. I was on a YouTube channel earlier, or I caught it on Instagram. It just showed up in my suggestions. And it was a guy with about 400,000 subs. I'm not going to mention his name. The guy, I think, was a free handler. That's what he was doing. He picked up a very large rattlesnake just barehanded. And I'm just thinking, you know, when you eventually get bit, if you write off your hospital bill and you know, ditch responsibility, things like that, you know, it's going to be a black stain on what we do as private herpetoculturalists. Now, once again, I believe in being responsible for what you do. You know, if you, like I said, if you have a dog and your dog gets out and it bites a neighbor, you're going to pay. Same concept of what's going on with a cobra. But because so many people own dogs and so many people like dogs and so many people aren't scared of dogs, which one's going to get banned? The venomous snake or the dog? I mean, which one is going to get banned? It's going to be the snake, because fear drives a lot of this legislation. I've seen it throughout my entire life and throughout working in the government. Fear drives a lot of legislation, and a lot of times it's unfounded, but it's it's the playing field. It's what we have to work with. So, you know, I would, you're right, Iron Dog. You see these kids who have no business even owning a venomous snake. And I caught someone's live on Instagram the other night because, like, it was a suggested for me. The guy's, like, grabbing copperheads out of his cage with his hands, putting the hides back in with his hands. It's totally stupid. And you're right, Two Metal. The HSUS and PETA and some of those, like Animals Now, some of those groups, they are tracking this stuff hardcore. Keep in mind, the experiences I had to get to where I am today, you know, I've got nothing against private ownership of exotic animals if it's done right and responsibly. But I've also known a lot of animal rights people. I'm not saying I agree with them, but they've crossed my paths. We've worked on different projects before. I know how they operate. They are eating this stuff up, I guarantee you. I might even look around and see if I can get one to do a live with me next week. And maybe either black out his identity or something. Maybe have him wear a disguise, and maybe have him give us the rundown on what they see, because I know that they track that kind of stuff. I know they compile news articles. I know they download people's YouTube videos and things like that. They collect all this stuff, then they wait for the perfect opportunity, and then bam, venomous legislation happens. Like we're just talking about Texas. There's an amazing show in Conroe. It's called Herps. It's put on by a guy named Sean Gray, who's a really good guy. And they do have Venomous up for sale at this show. And I think most of their vendors are credible. But you go like 2 cities over, I think it's Beaumont, you you can't even own a monitor, or maybe it's not Beaumont, maybe it's somewhere else, but it's like literally 2 counties over from where Conroe is. You can't own large constrictors, you can't own monitors. Their reptile shows are like leopard geckos and corn snakes. It may not be Beaumont. Someone feel free to correct me on that if you're from South Texas and you know. And you're right, Eric B. There's a lot of people at the bottom of animal rights organizations, your PETA, HSUS, Animals Now, We Animals, things like that, that really do care about the welfare of animals. They have different philosophies of, how we should do things. A lot of them are staunch anti-captivity people, but in the end, they do like animals. They want what's best for animals. You're right, Iron Dog. Texas requires permits for big snakes. I think they may require permits for non-native venomous. I could be wrong. I know that some municipalities in Texas have banned these things. I know that like Oklahoma, from what I understand, has no laws on the books regulating the ownership of venomous snakes. You're supposed to have a permit, a CBW permit, but it depends on also where you live, because like the city of Bartlesville, you can't own any constrictor like a ball python. Like they pulled them all out of Petco's. Because it became illegal there, they passed a law against it. We all know that ball pythons are the most harmless animals on the planet. But once again, Tulsa, which is where I'm at, and Oklahoma City, which is another place I visit, it's my understanding that in those city areas, you can legally own things like large constrictors, but you can't own venomous. You can't own, I don't know if it's crocodilians or there's something else that you can't own. And so as a result, the reptile shows don't have them up for sale there. You can't like go and say, well, hey, I want to buy a cobra, but I live out here in the country, which normally would be like legal to keep. But you see, you can't sell it at this pet show because the I'm getting lost in my train of thought, because the pet show happens within the city or municipality that has banned the ownership of that animal. No crocs, just caiman. That's right, Iron Dog. That's what I was thinking of. You can get away with owning caimans. You can't own the larger crocodilians or the American alligator. The American alligator's heavily permitted in the state. And of course, they're a native species, so I can understand that concern as well, even though I think it'd be cool to own one someday. But I'm not against reasonable permit systems. Once again, though, my understanding of the guy with the Grand Prairie Cobra incident was that he had a permit. Texas Parks and Wildlife had signed off on it. What's going to be their role? They're going to face criticism. They're going to take heat over this because, when this comes back, people are going to throw it at the game wardens and say, hey, this guy, had his permits, but it still escaped. You signed off on his caging, but it still got out. That's going to be very deleterious for this kind of culture, hobby, pastime, whatever you want to call it. And alligator snappers, Iron Dog, in Oklahoma, if you get a CWB permit, a captive wildlife breeder's license, and you have the game warden inspect them and you show them the bill of sale, are fairly easy. I've got a friend who's into them, and I walked through all that with him recently. But at the end, I don't want this to go on much longer. I just want to throw it out there that it's like, you have to be responsible. You have to worry about contingency plans. You have to worry about if an animal escapes. You have to worry about the financial liability of that animal escaping. Um, Cold-blooded monsters, I've got a source for captive bred hatchlings. Message me on Instagram. I'll get you that information. I don't want to plug him here and now. He may not like that. But he is legal. He's legit. He's out of Missouri. And if you're in a state where they can legally be owned or owned with permits, he will sell to you. And now he will check. But once again, it gets back to the responsibility of the buyer, and that's the important thing. Is, that people sell to people who know what they're doing and know how to prevent escapes, things like that. It's never going to be a perfect system. There's always going to be an accident that happens. But these seemingly preventable accidents, are just, they're going to be the death knell of keeping, reptiles, in my opinion. And once again, please do cold-blooded, because I'll get you that information. But at the same time, unfollow my channel, unfriend me on Facebook or Instagram. I don't care. What I'm saying is we need to be responsible, and if you're a vendor, you need to be responsible. You need to vet the person you're selling to instead of just making a buck. That's my opinion. I'm sticking to it. I think free handling is stupid. It's another thing I dislike. Once again, I don't care how many followers you have. I can name 50 scientists that say it's stupid. And their opinion holds more weight with me than anyone in the private sector. Just go on to say that. Hit me up, cold-blooded, because I can get you the guy's information. And he's a very reputable source. He's very, very good. But I'm going to go ahead and kill it here for tonight. I encourage you, if you're going to get into venomous keeping, to connect to a herp society. Expect them to try and steer you away from venomous keeping. Expect them to try and talk you out of it. And sometimes, sadly, they are no help when if you want to do it and you're going to do it anyway. They're not a lot of help, but there are people. It's not easy to find, and that's why when you find someone, you really kind of need to hang on to them and do whatever is needed, because very rarely will people, do a thing like the class that the Rattlesnake Conservancy does, I think, in Florida. It's a week-long venomous handling camp. It's good stuff from what I've seen. The people that run it are, to the best of my knowledge, very legitimate and very qualified. But, like I said, whether it's a Doberman Pinscher, a chimpanzee, or a king cobra, if you bring it into your house, ultimately you're responsible for it. And you're responsible for making sure that it doesn't escape, making sure that it doesn't harm your neighbors, and making sure it's legal in your area to own. But with that, if you have any questions afterwards, please drop them in the comments below. I do watch the comments on my lives for about 2-3 weeks after I do them, and I generally would get the notifications. So, but if you have any questions about it, I would love to talk to you about it. I'd love to offer my time to you, and things like that. But once again, I grew up in a zoo, so I have maybe a different perspective on this than a lot of people. It's okay. We can have differing perspectives, but leave me questions, leave me comments, leave me concerns. I'll do my best to respond to them. I'm Wagner County Snake Hunter on Instagram. Hey, Survival, good to see you live, bro. I was glad I could pop in on yours earlier. I couldn't stay for the whole thing, but I will replay, gang. Yeah. Um, but but anyway, think about those things. A lot of people don't, and it's always good to be prepared and be responsible for what you do. And hopefully, this cobra gets off the streets of Grand Prairie soon. And thank you guys for watching. And with that, my voice is starting to go. I'm going to call it a night. I'm kind of doing these lives to fill in for some dry space in my video regime. I've got some videos in the works that should be good, that are coming up, but I'm kind of trying to get them really right before I release them. So I appreciate your patience. I appreciate you guys showing up in my lives. My Discord Phoenix family, love you guys. Love you guys for stopping by, even though I know this is not your forte. Um, you're right, Eric. There's a lot of impulse buys in the venomous world. They don't research, and and that's something that needs to change, and it needs to be on the vendors as well as the people buying. I mean, in my opinion. Once again, leave me hate mail. Send me nasty messages. I don't care. You're not going to change my mind, but I'll listen to you. But anyway, hit me up, gang. I'll be around. Sorry it's been a while since I've put out like a good full-length video. That last turtle one was kind of short. Hey, thank you, Survival. I do too. That's why I try to always rock your channel. But gang, I'm going to get out of here, get some more to drink. And yes, Sherry Lynn, you can leave me hate mail. Probably best not to leave it on my YouTube channel. Email me directly or hit me up on Instagram. But and right, people shouldn't sell hot snakes to beginners. But no, I welcome hate mail. I actually kind of enjoy it. I like pissing people off. I kind of just have that I don't know, personality. But anyway, if you came in on this in the middle or the end, and you're interested about where I got to my opinion, go back and watch the first part of the video. It'll shed the light. Gang, 67 minutes. It went a little too long. Sorry about that. But you guys take care, and I'll be in touch, and I'll be checking out your videos real soon. So see you guys later.